would you feel if an unmanned aerial vehicle from another country shot a missile at or near your home and your family in an attempt to target a suspected terrorist? Well, for the people in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, that hypothetical situation is a fierce reality sometimes. The aircraft I just mentioned that are unmanned are known as drones. The drone is similar to a plane, except for it doesn't have a pilot, and its main weapon system is a missile that it fires at its targets. Since 9/11, the U.S. government and the CIA have used drones as an integral part of the counterterrorism effort in the Middle East. This is important for you to know because A, drones are an integral part of the U.S. counterterrorism effort. B, the impact they have affects American foreign policy and potentially homeland security. And C, the strikes affect normal people just like me and you in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. I've done much research on drones and reading through the internet, watching the news, and I've learned much about the effect they've had on the countries that they take place in, Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, as well as the role they've placed in our counterterrorism efforts. Although they have killed many terrorists, they have also killed civilians. And as you can imagine, there's been a huge blowback from the drone strikes, not only in the countries in which they take place, but also in countries abroad. First, I want to tell you about the unfortunate civilian deaths associated with the drone strikes. Estimates of civilian deaths vary greatly depending on which source you read. The U.S. government tries to minimize the amount of deaths that they have caused through civilian deaths for public relations purposes, but some sources on the internet that give more aggressive numbers put the death toll up to 871, according to ProPublica.org. The reason why these deaths happen is because unmanned drones can't always effectively kill their targets without causing collateral damage. There are two types of strikes that drones use in the Middle East to target terrorists. The first is called personality strike. A personality strike is when they have a specific target going after a person. They know the name of the person. They have specific acts that they're suspected of doing, and they know their location, and they target them that way. The second type is called a signature strike. A signature strike is when a group of people or just one individual has been monitored by the CIA or the military, and they decide that their behavior has been possible terrorist behavior, so they've been targeted by the military and the CIA. The problem is that what defines terrorist behavior is very ambiguous. In fact, there's a running joke within the military, between military officials, that 3 guys doing jumping jacks in the Middle East could be a terrorist camp, and they could be targeted at. Despite all the civilian casualties and the ambiguity of who the strikes target, drones are still an integral part of U.S. counterterrorism efforts. Many argue that the terrorist deaths outweigh the civilian deaths, and that's why drones are still used in the Middle East. Not only this, but people also argue that drones mean less military deaths and less costs of our resources. That's because we don't have to put in ground troops every time we want to target a terrorist. It's just simple to send a drone there and try to target them that way. There's been a total of about 3,000 deaths that have occurred from drone strikes in the Middle East, and even the most aggressive civilian death counts still have the majority of those deaths being successful terrorist-targeted deaths. As you can imagine, this drone strike war, as some people call it, is not gone unseen by people. People in countries where the drone strikes occur, as well as other countries, are unhappy about these strikes. Hate for America has increased greatly by the civilian deaths from these strikes. In fact, U.S. General Stanley McChrystal was quoted as saying, "The resentment created by American use of unmanned strikes is much greater than the average American appreciates. They are hated on a visceral level, even by people who have never seen one or seen the effects of one." Not only are the civilians of these nations upset about the strikes, but governments are starting to stand up against this. Pakistani higher officials recently said that they do acknowledge drones as illegal and unlawful, according to a Pakistani policy organization. Not only are these the nations involved in these strikes upset, but nations abroad across the world are also upset. In fact, the UN has recently created a panel to investigate the usage and the lawfulness of these drones. And the U.S. government's really upset about this because since 9/11 they've been able to use the drone strikes unchecked, and they want to continue to use this policy. In fact, the New York Times says that any bid to place drone strikes under closer international scrutiny seems likely to run into strong resistance from the Obama administration. Before I wrap this up, I just want to share some recent news. Just yesterday, actually, a secret drone strike base was found in Saudi Arabia, and this was just reported by the news yesterday. And there's also a growing legal debate because currently the policies that U.S. military has the right to tag American citizens that are overseas with drones if they're considered threats. And so there's a huge legal debate coming up between the CIA and military and domestic government. With these two recent developments and the recent panel the UN, just created to investigate drone strikes, it's clear that the drone war is no longer on the back burner in international affairs. Also, I want to let you know about a Twitter site that has tracked every single strike since 9/11. Gives like details who died, where the strike was, all that stuff. It's called Drone Stream, so you can find that on Twitter if you're interested and want to follow this. In conclusion, I hope you all have a great understanding of how and why drone strikes are used, as well as understanding the risks in finding targets and the high amounts of collateral damage involved. Could you imagine such a policy being implemented on American soil?